You know that feeling? Like that sudden cold pit in your gut
Hmm.
right before you have to step up and do something totally terrifying.
Oh, yeah. The sweaty palms.
Exactly. Your palms get sweaty,
Yeah.
your heart starts hammering against your ribs, and your brain is basically screaming at you to turn around and run away.
It's the worst. It really is.
It is. Maybe you're, standing outside the cafeteria doors trying to figure out where to sit. Or maybe it's that dead silence right before you have to give a presentation.
Or trying out for a team when you know the odds are totally stacked against you.
Right. Well, welcome to this episode. We are so glad you're listening today. Our whole mission for this episode is exploring a framework for navigating that exact sensation.
Navigating the panic.
Yeah, we're calling this one Faith Greater Than Fear, Getting Out of the Boat.
I love that title. Because that physiological response, that panic, it's a universal human experience. Especially when you are navigating the absolute roller coaster that is, middle school or high school.
Sure.
It's basically your body's threat detection system going into overdrive. Its primary goal is to keep you safe.
Which usually means convincing you to stay quiet, blend in, and just never leave your comfort zone.
Exactly. Stay in the boat.
But the problem is, staying completely safe usually means staying completely stuck. Like, what if there is something incredible you are meant to do, and that instinct to hide is the only thing holding you back?
That is the big question.
Right. So to figure out how to sort of short-circuit that fear response, we are looking at an incredible story from the Bible today.
It really is a fascinating narrative.
It's about a guy named Peter who faced down his ultimate terror in a way that honestly, it feels straight out of a cinematic thriller. It's the perfect case study for what happens when we choose to step into the unknown.
Yeah, because it takes this highly abstract psychological concept of fear and it grounds it in a literal life or death physical scenario.
Totally.
But to really understand the stakes, we have to look at the environment where this happens. It takes place on the Sea of Galilee.
Which we should probably define that for anyone who doesn't know.
Right. So despite the name, it isn't actually an ocean. It's a large freshwater lake in Israel. Jesus actually did a ton of his teachings and miracles right around this lake.
Okay, so it's a big lake.
Yes, but geographically, it is situated nearly 700 feet below sea level, and it's completely surrounded by steep, mountainous terrain.
Which basically acts like a giant wind tunnel, right?
Precisely. Cold air from the mountains rushes down into that bowl and violently collides with the warm, moist air sitting right over the lake.
Wow.
Because of this, the Sea of Galilee is notorious for these explosive squalls that just erupt out of nowhere. I mean, you can have glass-like water one minute and raging, life-threatening waves the next.
That is terrifying.
It is. And in this story, which is found in the book of Matthew, chapter 14, a group of guys are caught right in the dead center of one of these sudden storms in a small fishing boat.
And these guys are Jesus' disciples. And a disciple, just to clarify that churchy word, is basically a follower or a student. The 12 disciples were his closest followers who traveled with him and learned directly from him.
Exactly.
But it's so crucial to remember that several of these guys were professional fishermen.
Yes. They grew up on this lake.
They knew its moods. So if the text tells us they are struggling against the wind and the waves and are terrified, we aren't talking about like a rough boat ride.
No, not at all.
We are talking about a scenario where seasoned experts are absolutely certain they are about to drown.
It is pitch black. The noise of the wind would be deafening. They are utterly exhausted, bailing water completely out of control.
I can't even imagine the panic.
And right at the peak of this sheer terror, they see a silhouette. Someone is walking toward them.
On the water.
Literally on top of the raging water.
And their reaction is so perfectly human, they scream, "It's a ghost."
Which makes sense.
Right. Because your brain, when it is already pushed to the absolute limit of panic, will always jump to those terrifying conclusions to explain something impossible.
Totally. But then a voice cuts through the roar of the storm. It's Jesus. And he says, "Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid."
If you put yourself in that boat, the natural response to hearing that voice is just overwhelming relief.
Oh, absolutely. You drop the oars, you hunker down, and you wait for him to arrive, calm the weather, and save you.
You just hold on for dear life.
Yeah.
But Peter has this wild, entirely unpredictable reaction.
He really does.
Instead of waiting for the rescue, he shouts over the wind, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water."
It's an audacious request.
It really is.
Yeah.
He doesn't ask for the storm to stop. He asks to step into the impossible alongside his teacher.
And the response he gets from Jesus is just a single word. He just says, "Come."
And Peter doesn't hesitate. He swings his legs over the side of this violently rocking boat and steps down onto the pitch-black churning water.
It gives me chills just thinking about it.
The best way I can picture the psychology of this moment, it's like imagining you are a rookie bench warmer on a basketball team.
Okay, I like this.
You haven't played a minute all season. It's the final seconds of a tied championship game. The star player goes down, and the coach is desperately scanning the bench.
And everyone is avoiding eye contact.
Exactly. But instead of looking away, you jump up, look the coach in the eye, and say, "Put me in, I'll take the final shot." It's a split-second, adrenaline-fueled decision to leave total safety.
Yes. And the stakes here are even higher because, leaving the bench doesn't usually defy the laws of physics.
Fair point.
Peter is actually doing it. He is walking on the water in the middle of a raging squall.
He's doing the impossible. But, and this is where it gets so relatable, it only lasts a few seconds.
Right.
The text says he is walking, but then he notices the wind. He registers the storm around him, panics, starts sinking like a stone, and screams, "Lord, save me!"
The adrenaline wears off.
Exactly. But wait, we have to stop here for a second and look at this. The water is the deadly element, right?
Yeah, the water is the thing that drowns you.
But he was already standing on the water. He was already conquering the main threat. So why does the background noise, the wind, suddenly take him down?
That is the core psychological pivot of the entire event. And it hinges entirely on our third churchy word for today, which is faith.
Okay, break that down for us.
Faith, in this context, isn't just a mental checklist where you politely agree that God exists.
Right.
Faith is an active, sustained focus. It means trusting the anchor more than you fear the storm and taking a literal physical step based on that trust.
Okay, so it's action-oriented.
Exactly. When Peter first stepped out, his absolute focus was locked onto Jesus. That intense focal point overrode his natural threat detection.
No, wasn't looking at the waves.
No. But the moment he shifted his gaze to the wind, to the uncontrollable, chaotic variables swirling around him, his brain snapped right back into survival mode.
He started hyper-focusing on all the invisible what-ifs.
Yeah.
Like, the wind is literally just air moving.
Right.
But it represents everything he can't control.
Exactly. And this is the exact mechanism of modern teen anxiety.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Anxiety is basically fear's manipulative cousin. It forces you to fixate on the wind.
That is such a good way to put it.
When you are about to do something brave, anxiety doesn't usually focus on the immediate task. It focuses on the swirling variables. What if they laugh at me? What if I fail? What if my voice shakes?
You are staring at the wind.
And the moment you do that, your trust wavers and you begin to sink.
The Bible actually talks about this mental spiraling, right? There's a section in Philippians chapter 4 that addresses anxiety directly.
Yes, it's a great passage.
It says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds."
It's a beautiful promise.
It is. But I have to push back here for a second.
Sure.
Telling an anxious teenager to just pray and look at Jesus instead of the wind sounds a lot like telling a severely depressed person to just be happy.
Oh, absolutely. It can sound very dismissive.
Right. Because when your nervous system is in full fight or flight mode, how do you actually force that shift in focus? I mean, you can't just wish the panic away.
You are absolutely right. You cannot just wish it away. And the text isn't suggesting some magic spell. It is outlining an actual process of cognitive reframing.
Okay, explain that.
So when you are in a state of panic, your brain's amygdala, that's the fear center, is sounding a blaring alarm.
Like a fire alarm going off in your head.
Right. And when the amygdala is highly active, your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that handles logic, reasoning, and trust, it essentially shuts down.
So you literally cannot think your way out of it.
You can't. But notice the specific instruction in Philippians. It says, with thanksgiving.
Gratitude.
Yes. Neuroscience actually shows us that the active practice of gratitude forces the brain to produce dopamine and serotonin. It acts as a pattern interrupts. When you pause a panic spiral to specifically give thanks or acknowledge what is true and good, you are physically down-regulating the amygdala.
You're turning off the fire alarm?
And turning your prefrontal cortex back on. You are taking the physiological reins back from your fear center. That is how the peace of God begins to guard your mind. It's an active, structural shift in your focus.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
You are using gratitude to hit the manual override switch on your panic.
Exactly.
Let's translate this ancient nautical story to the actual lives of our listeners right now. Because, you listening might not be navigating a fishing boat through a squall on a Tuesday,
Probably not.
but you definitely have a boat and you definitely have water in your own life.
So true. The boat is your comfort zone.
Right.
It is predictable, it is socially safe, and you are in control. As long as you stay in the boat, nobody is going to laugh at you and you aren't going to fail.
And the water represents the vulnerability. It's the risky, unknown action outside that comfort zone.
Things Jesus might be calling you to step into.
Exactly. So what does walking on the water look like for a teen today?
Well, it looks like walking up to someone you know you have hurt and offering a genuine apology without making excuses.
Oh, man. That requires massive vulnerability.
It feels incredibly risky, like stepping onto dark water, or it might mean defending someone who's being iced out by your friend group.
Yeah, it's raising your hand in class to share an opinion you know is right, even if it's unpopular.
Or choosing to be honest about your faith when it would be so much easier just nod along with the crowd.
Or honestly, even just sitting at a new lunch table when you don't know anyone.
Huge risk.
But staying in the boat, on the other hand, just looks like silence.
Yeah.
You swallow the question, you ignore the lonely person, you keep your head down.
The boat keeps you perfectly dry, but it's a trap.
It is. Because if you never leave it, your world never gets any bigger. You are stuck.
It is entirely limiting. But we have to address the terrifying reality of the water here.
The sinking part.
Right, because when you step out, sinking is a real possibility. Peter sank. He literally choked on the water.
So what happens when we take the risk, we make ourselves vulnerable, and we just fall flat on our face?
This is where the story gets really compelling. Because Jesus doesn't stand on the water with his arms crossed, shaking his head, waiting for Peter to figure it out.
He doesn't say, told you so.
No. The text says that immediately, Jesus reaches out his hand and catches him.
Immediately.
He pulls him up and asks, "You have little faith, why did you doubt?" He doesn't crush Peter for failing. He uses the failure to invite him into deeper trust.
We really have a terrible habit of defining Peter by his few seconds of sinking, don't we?
We do. But Peter is the only human being in history, other than Jesus, to walk on the surface of the sea.
That's such a good point.
It is a story of profound courage, not a story of failure. The failure was just a momentary stepping stone.
Right. And the Bible actually reinforces this mindset in Proverbs 24. It says, "For though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again."
Notice it doesn't say if they fall.
Oh, yeah. It says, though they fall. Setbacks are a guaranteed byproduct of forward momentum. If you aren't falling, you aren't moving.
Exactly.
But again, I have to be real here. In the actual moment of failure, the sting of rejection is brutal.
It really is.
Like when you finally muster the courage to talk to that new group and they completely brush you off. Or you try out for the play and don't get the part. The voice of fear screams, "See? I told you so. You should have stayed in the boat."
It's so loud in that moment.
The humiliation is real. So how do you recover from that specific sting? How do you shut that voice up?
You fight that voice with the neuroplasticity of courage.
Okay, big words. Break that down.
Courage is not something you were born with. It is a muscle. And muscles only grow through resistance and micro tears.
Through actually doing the hard thing.
Right. When you try and you fail and you survive the failure, you teach your brain that the worst case scenario isn't actually fatal.
Wow.
If Peter had stayed in the boat, he would have stayed safe, but his fear of the water would have remained absolute.
He never would have conquered it.
By sinking and being caught, he learned that even when his faith faltered, he wasn't going to be abandoned. The sting of rejection fades quickly, but the permanent resilience you build simply by surviving the attempt, that changes who you are.
So the victory is in the attempt itself, not the outcome.
Exactly.
That shifts the goalposts entirely. It means you succeed the second you swing your legs over the side of the boat, regardless of what happens next.
Yes.
Okay, so how do we actively put this into practice this week? If you're listening, we have 2 distinct challenges to help you apply this framework to your life right now.
The first is the Faith Step Challenge. We want you to identify your specific hurdle. What is a one small thing you have known you should do, but fear has kept you paralyzed?
It doesn't need to be saving the world. It might just be sending one text.
Or sitting with a new group at lunch.
It might be offering one compliment. Or asking a teacher for help instead of hiding the fact that you're failing a class.
Pick that one specific action. Pray for courage first, pause, recognize the fear, and consciously decide to value the attempt over the outcome.
Take the step.
Take the step. And when you do, deliberately focus your eyes on Jesus and the action itself, rather than looking at the swirling what-ifs of the wind. Reflect afterward on how it actually felt to try.
That's so good. And our second challenge is for when the panic inevitably hits. We call it the fear to faith flip.
I love this one.
It is a 3-step cognitive reframe. Step 1. Acknowledge the fear. Name the wind. Identify exactly what wind and waves you are focusing on, and don't suppress it. Literally say, I'm afraid they will think I'm weird.
Step 2 is implementing the pattern interrupt. Use gratitude to force your brain out of the amygdala's panic spiral. Give thanks for one true, grounding fact in that moment.
And step 3. Shift your focus to a promise that anchors you. Use a verse from the Bible to replace the panic. For example, Isaiah 41:10 says, So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you.
You use that promise to take your eyes off the chaos and lock them onto the rescue.
It's all about shifting your gaze. You know, we've spent this entire episode looking at Peter's perspective, the adrenaline, the risk, the sinking, the rescue.
Yeah.
But think about the other 11 disciples for a second. They stayed in the boat.
They did?
They stayed perfectly safe, totally dry, and completely secure.
But they missed it.
They spent the rest of their lives knowing they missed their one and only chance to walk on water. We spend so much time terrified of sinking, but what if the greatest tragedy of all is living your entire life perfectly safe, perfectly dry, and perfectly bored inside a boat that Jesus is actively asking you to step out of?
That is a powerful thought to end on. If it's all right, I'd love to just read a brief closing prayer straight from the themes of this text.
Please do.
God, give us the courage to step out of the boat. Thank you for being bigger than our fears and bigger than the storms around us. Help us to take steps of faith this week, and when the winds and waves rise, help us to keep our eyes fixed entirely on you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode today. We hope this encourages you to take that step, because your faith is far greater than any fear.
You've got this.
And hey, don't forget to follow the podcast so you don't miss any of our future episodes. Have an awesome week, and we'll catch you next time.